Welcome back to episode 44 of Blurred Summits. Today we have Haidar Putra with us today to talk about the environment, which he's very passionate about, as well as confidence and self-identity. So, Haidar, you're very passionate about different environmental projects, right? And you work in the community a ton with different projects. Why should others care to focus about the environment?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why I'm very passionate about the environment, but one of the reasons is actually I'd like to bounce back a question to you guys. And like imagine this, so you go on a school field trip, right? Mm-hmm. And the school field trip, you're supposed to go to this nice resort, go snorkeling and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And you go on this little island called Mabul Island, and you're on this island and you do all these activities, going to snorkeling, seeing all the ocean wildlife, etc. But then you start walking, like one day you start kind of like wanted to try the local delicacies, for example. Mm-hmm. So you start walking to a little store in the village of the island and you buy some of the local delicacies. So you take that local delicacies and you bring it to your resort. But as you walk, you see this group of kids just running towards you, and they were asking, and the first thing they were asking was, "Can I have some food?" And so you decide to give it to them. So then the next day, you're thinking, "Oh, I kind of want some of that delicacies again." So you went to go and buy that from the same place. But this time you're like, "I kind of want to watch the sunset." So you start going to the sunset. You go to this little bridge, and you start sitting down, and you watch the sunset as the sun sets. But then you realize you see two kids on a small kind of canoe, right below the bridge, and they stopped right under you, and they were like, "Can we have some food?" So you start giving it to them again. Mm-hmm. And then the next day you're like, "Okay, I kind of want more of that local delicacies." It was really good, by the way. So then you this time you go back to the resort, but this time you see a different group of kids asking you for the same thing. "Can I have some food?" So this happened almost every day throughout the time I was in that island in a school field trip when I was, I think, grade 10. That was just the first layer. And then when I realized that this village was actually a poverty-stricken village. Mm. And if you go around the island, it's a really small island. It takes about 2 hours to go through the perimeter. But 50% of that or more actually is covered in just pure garbage and trash. I wish I had photos to share with you, because it's you have to see it for
What
yourself.
was the island called?
It's called Mabul Island.
Mabul Island.
Whereabouts is that?
It's just off the coast of Borneo.
How do you spell that? How do you spell Mabul Island?
Mabul.
Mabul Island.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can get a picture up on the screen of the island. If you send us a picture, we'll put it up on the screen.
It's pretty horrible. And the thing is, a lot of that trash is not actually from that island. A lot of that trash came from the main island. So they're not even causing their own problems.
Yeah.
It's caused by other people. And the worst part was a lot of the people that live in that island are sea nomads. So back in the day before colonization, before all this, they actually traveled between islands and islands with boats. So they live on the boat. They do everything on their boat. Eat, sleep, go to the toilet. They do everything on the boat. But then since colonization, they kind of closed off all the borders. So they used to travel around Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and sometimes Australia. And they live by fishing, essentially. Mm-hmm. And they're like a fishing community. But since the international borders, they can't do that anymore, because they can't go freely between borders, right?
Yeah.
So they're trapped. Yeah. Are they trapped now?
They're trapped, and the Malaysian government is not willing to give them citizenship, so they don't have citizenship
wow.
Yeah, so they don't. So they're essentially just trapped in that island, a lot of them. So
yeah.
So
they're trapped on the Mobile Island,
Mobile Island, yeah. And if they try to go to the main island, they also sometimes get discriminated against because people see them as uncivilized and stuff like that.
Mm. Wow.
It's pretty bizarre stuff. Yeah.
That's pretty insane. And do you know what that kind of reminds me of is, have you ever seen the Moana movie?
I haven't.
Where like,
I haven't.
well, it's like the point is like
the reference. Yeah.
like their people used to be the same. Like they used to be on the ocean and traveling. Like that's a part of your identity. That's a part of your ancestry, you know. And they're sort of living on this island, and you lose a big part of who you are when you're not able to do the things that your ancestors used to do. You know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The even worse part there is you said like there's garbage that's not even theirs being just ruining their land, right?
Yeah.
It's like the lack of respect people have for their territory.
Basically. And like going back to my first point is like, how would you guys feel if that's like those group of kids just kept begging you for food and you realize all these stuff are happening to them and it's not even their fault or their parents' fault?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would definitely not feel good, right? It'd be like, oh, you'd feel bad, but then that's why you give them the food, right? It's like, okay, I understand their struggles.
Yeah.
And the difference between us is like luck of the draw, right?
Yeah.
That's the real difference between like me and that kid is it's just I happen to get lucky and not be in that situation.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think
that's it.
I saw this video on that where like no matter anything, like athletes, CEOs, everything, there is a side of luck that comes into play with everything in life, right?
Yeah.
And it's out of your control, but you just need to do whatever you can with what you're handed to.
Yeah.
And in that situation, you were handed the ability to give them food. And then they got some food from you.
Yeah, so like every time like I litter or whatever, all I could see is those kids' faces. Just like every time like I do something against the environment, like all I could see is their faces is why I'm really passionate about the projects I do. So
Damn. So, you know, switching gears a little bit, you are kind of living by yourself, right? You have to take care of yourself, you have to take care of your brother, all this stuff. And so, you know, one of the things that I really respect about you is your independence. You know, like a lot of people our age, it's like, I have to clean my room. I'll do it tomorrow. Let me go hang out with my friends right now.
Who knows? They're going to record a podcast in their parents' basement.
Yeah. Right. You know, so, but every time, like, you have the self-discipline to turn down, you know, like, I can't hang out today because I'm cleaning the house. I have this responsibility to take up. Where do you think you get that sense of responsibility?
Sure. Well, maybe just give a little context to viewers is, so I've started living alone when I was 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to Malaysia for a bit. I used to go to school with all of you guys. We used to be in the same class.
Yeah, back in junior high. Those were the days.
That was the days, yeah. But yeah, when I went to Malaysia and I came back, it was kind of a decision that me and my parents kind of had. We were like, it was probably best if I go alone because they couldn't afford everyone. And it was probably better for me, for my education. So we kind of agreed to that. And yeah, I was here since I was 16. And I was actually supposed to go to Churchill. And I think this is where I started to get that independence. Going back to that Maibu Island is when I wanted to do things like in my own way. And I didn't want it to kind of just go with the flow of high school. So I was supposed to go to Churchill, but when I looked into the Churchill's program, there wasn't any program about the environment or anything like that. So I did a lot of searching throughout the Calgary schools, and like I found a school in the Southwest that I was really interested in, and they had this really cool environmental program, and I was really interested in that. So I kind of convinced my parents to let me go there, and that's kind of where my independence kind of started. Is when I started to think for myself, and like what I wanted to do in life.
Yeah.
I didn't just want to go to Churchill and go with everyone, like go through the same process that everyone. I wanted to do like my own thing, and like thanks to that, like I definitely gained a lot more confidence in myself and in my own decisions. So I started to be more confident in all the decisions that I make, and it just kind of carried through to university. And then when I entered university is when I started to become a guardian for my younger brother. And that was like a whole new set of challenges that I had to do.
Yeah.
And like, to be honest, like when I was 16, like I would have done the same thing like as you guys. Like I didn't really clean my room until I really need to.
Yeah.
No one's there. But when I started becoming a guardian to my brother, I started to become a bit more responsible, because you're supposed to set like a role. You're supposed to be a role model. I'm forced to be a role model for him because he doesn't have anyone to look up to, because it's like our parents aren't here, and no one in our, like, it's just me and him essentially. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of forced onto that position.
That's
Do
interesting.
you think like a big deal of this was like you following your passions, like when you said with the environment, right?
Yeah,
Does that
yeah.
give you kind of like a place of like value and stuff with like through high school and stuff, give you a bit more meaning with that?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely gave me a bit more of a kind of goal that I'm working towards to, or like set path. Um, like I know a lot of high school kids, by when they're graduating, they have a difficult time of what they want to choose. So a lot of the time they spend a lot of time thinking about that. But kind of already knew what I wanted to do. It's just a matter of picking which degree kind of matched the most.
Okay.
Yeah, and that definitely gave me a lot of more free time to think about stuff. Like the decision to get my brother here was actually my decision. I insisted to my parents that they come here because my parents also had three other siblings to take care of, and it was definitely getting harder for them to take care of all of them. And one of my sisters is also in the autistic spectrum, so I wanted my parents to focus on her a little bit more. So that's why I kind of insisted my brother to come here, and that kind of also played a part in in my confidence in myself, and then also the responsibility that I felt, because like it was my decision to get him here, so I should be responsible for all the stuff that he did.
That's amazing, because like from a decently young age, you know, in like teenage years, you're kind of thinking like a 30-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Like you're thinking about the burdens of other people, you're thinking about considerations of other people. That kind of empathy, you don't really see that around much, you know, especially not when you're a teenager, not when you're that young, even at our age.
Yeah, well, it's hard to come by when you're young, let alone when you're 30.
Yeah,
like when
yeah.
you actually have your own kids and all that stuff. So it's
So, you know, I'm trying to figure it out, you know, like I'm trying to figure out, why is it that Haidar's got it figured out? You know, where does he get that click from? What's the thing that made you, is it because you had a certain role model in your younger years? Is it because like, where does that come from? Or is it just a matter of you had that experience of independence, and so you were kind of forced to grow up faster than average?
You know, it's a lot of factors actually. Some of them are a little bit silly, some of them are really serious. I think one of the biggest reasons, because I traveled a lot when I was younger. Like I was in Indonesia until I was 6 years old. And then I went to Norway for about a year, and then I went to Qatar for 4 years, then UAE for 2 years, and then Canada.
Crazy.
Yeah, Canada for like 1.5 years. That's when I had time with some of you guys.
Right.
And then I went to Malaysia for a year. And in Malaysia, I actually went to boarding school. So that definitely helped build my independence a little bit more too. But then I went back to Canada after that. But that's one of the reasons. And I think when you travel, you kind of build this kind of unrivaled kind of wisdom that you don't really get from anything else. And yeah, that's definitely one of the reasons. I think the other main reason is because I've had such a close experience with like death that it's just like stuff I think about almost all the time. Like, what would I do if I died tomorrow, essentially?
Right.
Because when I was 6 years old, just before I moved to Norway, like an earthquake occurred in my village, and like all of our house was torn down, and it was just me, my brother, and my other brother who kind of passed away during that event. We were there, and then like the house just like torn down, and we were sleeping. It was like the earthquake occurred at 4 a.m. and like I woke up with just like I'll retell the memory, and it's pretty horrific stuff because I still remember it properly. It's like, so when I woke up, all I could see was just red, just like pure, just red. And then I tried to like move like my arms and limbs, like I couldn't even do that.
Wow.
Damn.
And then like all I could do at that time was like scream, essentially. Like when you feel so helpless, you kind of just like scream for your mom, right? Like that's like your first instinct. And like when I was buried by my grandmother, like I started to be more clear, and like I realized the red was basically my blood. And like if you like this scar, like blood was just pouring from this scar. Like this was the cause of that scar. So it was just like pouring over my eyes, and like yeah, I saw everything. Like I remember until up that point, and I'm pretty sure I fell unconscious after that because it was just so overwhelming.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think that also played a huge role in my independence and like my eagerness to find reason at a very young age. Because I was like, why was it me that was saved that day? Like, why did my other brother had to pass away? Like, I had to think about that almost like once in a while as I grew up. Essentially, like I had to find a meaning for that.
Yeah. And what meaning do you think that you found?
And I think it's like, I think we all could die the next day, but it really, like if you, like it was, I think it's a privilege, and it's a huge privilege for me to be like saved that day. So I felt that like I had a responsibility to give back essentially. So like one of the things that I want to do in the future is basically go back to Indonesia and like repay the people that saved me that day. And actually, the people that there was a lot of ERs or emergency responders there, and like they definitely played a huge role in like keeping all of us alive, or else I would have pretty much bleed to death essentially. So I definitely felt that I had a responsibility to kind of give back in some way, regardless of what that way is. But that's kind of how I felt, how I found my meaning to kind of that event, because it never really made any sense because all of us like slept on the same bed, but why is it the two of us made it out alive?
Right.
Yeah. So kind of touching on that, how do, like you're touching on taking things for granted a bit, right?
Yeah.
So how can people make sure that they don't take things for granted themselves?
I think it's just making sure, or like being aware of the stuff that other people have to go through. And like one of the things, do you guys remember, have you guys watched Iron Man?
Yeah.
I don't remember which Iron Man it is, but there was one scene in an Iron Man movie where Tony Stark built this machine or this invention where he put something on his head and then it's able to recreate his memories onto a visual screen.
Yeah, that was in. That wasn't an.
It was an Endgame, wasn't it? Or was it one of the Avengers?
It was one of the Avengers. I think.
Avengers,
It was like
yeah.
where his like father was in the thing.
Yeah,
and all that
exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
Like if we had something like that where people can see how other people experience things,
Wow.
it would be like life changing. Because I think we just have to put ourselves in other people's shoes, because it's not about the statistics. Like people don't care whether, like if you see stats on how many people died, you kind of just brush it off the next day. But if you see like in the perspective of one of those million people that like went through a tsunami, for example, it's traumatizing essentially. And like if we are able to experience that, or at least try to be able to, or I try to be more open to people like that or to experiences like that, I think it'll definitely develop like our empathy for one another.
Well, what was that saying? It's like when like a few people die, it's like a number. It was like something, and then when millions of people die, it's a statistic. Something like that, right? Where it's like as soon as it gets so big, people can't comprehend how devastating it is for society and stuff,
because
right?
each one of those people have an experience that is life-defining for them.
And they've each got like their connection of family and people around them too, right?
Yeah.
So it's not only that death is impacting them, it's impacting their families. And then think about that, like that's a million people die. That's like 7+ million people probably are affected by a big event like that, right? Like
It's pretty bizarre.
Like it's unbelievable when you think about it, how big of an impact some of these like tragedies have on people and their families.
So what is something that, an outcome, something that you got out of your volunteer experiences and your involvement that you weren't expecting to get out of it when you went in?
I don't know. There's a lot of things. It depends, like what type of outcomes, like
anything. Like it could just be individual, like things that you realize about yourself, things you realize about other people, maybe something that gave you more meaning, that gave you a better understanding of how the world works. It can be
Unexpected skill that you of a project you didn't know you'd get.
One of them is like my ability to kind of communicate effectively. I never realized that being a volunteer, like doing a lot of these volunteer projects, would give me an opportunity to like do a lot of public speaking essentially. And it definitely helped me like help me through the years. And doing all these volunteer projects, I was put in a lot of positions where I was forced to kind of present myself in a large audience. There was like one time where my teacher and was like, we were in a conference, like an environmental conference.
Okay.
And one of the panelists actually didn't show up that day.
Yeah.
So then my teacher or the organizers were like, hey, do you want to get one of your students to speak? And my teacher, the moment she asked that to my teacher, and my teacher like looked at me and I was like, Haidar, do you want to do it? Like I had nothing prepared for that day.
Yeah.
So I was like, sure. like when I thought about it, I was like, I guess this is a good experience for me to experience improv and stuff. And it was probably one of the worst presentations I've done ever.
But sometimes it helps to just be thrown in the deep end, right? You got to get thrown in deep end, teach yourself how to swim.
Exactly. Like ever since then, nothing really bothers me anymore. Like when I'm put into those positions, like it definitely helped me build my more confidence because I haven't been that low. And like all the presentations I've done, that was like the worst.
You're like, it's only uphill from here.
Yeah, it's only uphill from here. Like another unexpected outcome that I got was like I got invited to be interviewed with the mayor like at one time, and I thought that was going to be nerve-wracking because it's like you're basically put in a spot where like all the like TV outlets, they have like all these huge cameras, and they're like, and for some reason I didn't feel all that pressured, and I kind of just spoke from what I know essentially.
Interesting.
And then even the camera and then even the people that were there said that like I felt unexpectedly confident.
Oh. This was after you'd done that conference?
This is way after that.
Oh yeah, so that probably helped you with that, right? It's
definitely.
It's like I've done this in front of all these people at this conference. What's this?
Yeah.
It's just the mayor.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's like a bit of a backhanded compliment. They're like, yeah, you seemed way more confident than you thought you were going to be. Like, what the heck?
That's like saying, hey, you're a student. We weren't expecting very much.
Right? That's funny.
But yeah, I think public speaking, though, like that's one of like the biggest skills for anyone, right? Like no matter what you're doing in life, you need to know how to public speak, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's like through even like customer service, public speaking, anything like that, you need that sort of experience to do good at it. It's not something you can really train, right? You can't really... Like on your own time,
experience
do it. Yeah,
you need to experience humiliation.
You learn
can't
through
practice
failure.
Humiliation, right?
You have to learn through failure for public speaking, right? You do it, and it's like, oh well, you just have to forget that people don't really care what you're saying.
Exactly.
Just I'll say it. If they have their opinion, so what?
Yeah,
just go on with it, right?
It's like you're not gonna read a textbook on humiliation and be like, okay, I have all the confidence in the world now.
Yeah,
right.
So,
like you can't simulate those feelings.
Yeah. So leading off these project things, so why do you think people get so emotionally invested in their projects that they do?
Well, I think it really depends on the person, but in general, I believe once you start putting a lot of effort into something, like you start to get emotionally invested to it. So then, like if you fail, you kind of take it personally sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and you definitely want it to succeed. But in terms of like certain projects, it really depends on. It's kind of I feel like it's the other way around. It's like people get emotionally invested into things, and then they start start doing things like projects and stuff like that in order to kind of fill that investment. I don't really like. I think it can go to both ways, depending on how you look at it. Like for me, I was emotionally invested in the environment because of that experience. So then I started to do these projects, and then as a result, I became emotionally invested in projects. So then it's like a kind of feedback loop sort of thing.
Interesting. Why do you like? You touched on having to, you moved like, I don't know, you listed 5-6 places. That you
the whole world, basically.
Yeah, right? And you kind of mentioned how you got your independence from having to move from all these places. What is it like to experience having to start over socially? You know, like if I'm about to move to New Zealand tomorrow, right, and nobody else is there, what would you kind of tell me about starting over from scratch, basically?
Okay. It's funny because like a lot of people view like moving to a new place as something scary, and like there's a lot of uncertainty with it. And there is a lot of uncertainty with that. And I think the first few times I moved, it was definitely kind of intimidating a little bit. But then I don't know at what point, but like at a certain point in my life, I started to view like moving to a new place as like a new opportunity. Because when you're like stuck in a place, you know all the people around you and you have a lot of friends in that place, they kind of start to perpetuate like they kind of already have an expectation of how you behave and like what your characteristics are. But then when you move to a new place, like no one knows what your personality is or like what your characteristic is. So it's an opportunity for you to develop on yourself because you get that opportunity every time. But if you're like stuck in a place, it's a bit harder because people around you, it'll take time for them to adapt to your newfound opportunity. So like every time I move nowadays, it's like I think about what I can develop in myself. Like I used to be really shy in elementary. But then every time I moved to a new place, I kind of started to, try new things and be more open and like talk a bit more with some people. And then once like in the first few weeks, maybe that's kind of when you want to try to put yourself out there and try to develop something new. But then once the other people start to already know what they can expect from you, everything, it just kind of comes naturally. And the personality that you try to develop kind of just stays permanent.
That's interesting. It's kind of like Halloween. Like they say, like Halloween, you can be whoever you want. It's like you go to a new place. You're absolutely right. I never thought about that. Nobody knows who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
You're blank slate. You could make any personality. You could be a narcissist if you wanted. Like like in one place you're completely right. Like you can completely reinvent yourself.
Exactly.
That's so interesting.
So did all that moving make you become a lot more individualistic then?
A little bit, yeah, definitely. Because I started to develop more on myself, and like I don't know where I got the inspiration from, but I think part of the reason is when I was younger, I used to watch a lot of anime shows, and there's these anime shows that kind of talk about chasing your dreams and stuff like that and developing on yourself. And that's actually where I learned like the concept of developing on yourself first before I started to like go to other sources. And it's a very interesting way of like learning about something. Yeah. Because it's like I learned it from a show.
and they said TV wasn't educational.
And they say TV wasn't educational. But yeah, that's where I learned a lot of like independent characteristics as well. Because the protagonist is always the one who tries to do something new.
They're the ones on the adventure. Yeah, they're the ones who have to leave their hometown. Always, right?
Like I'm always like thinking like I wish I could have that life. So then every time I move to a new place, I try to mimic something that's from like a certain show or something like that, or a characteristic that they try to do, and try to do something similar.
Yeah, because I remember when we were in grade 9 and, you said like you're moving back to Indonesia. I was like, or Malaysia at the time. I was like, so like, how are you feeling? And you were like, I'm pretty excited. You're like, you know what? I'm looking forward to the change. I enjoy the change. And I still literally remember it so vividly because I was like, this is the first person who has ever told me that they love the change. Usually it's kind of like, I'm scared. I'm not too sure about it. It's going to be difficult, all this stuff. But you were on board. You were there 100%.
Well, yeah,
right?
Usually they're like upset that they're leaving. But you're like, yeah, new change, new challenge, which is commendable. It's like, you taking a challenge like that, it's tough.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you a question. And this is a question that I want to sort of see your opinion on. So, you wear kind of the Islamic cap or cultural wear, let's call it, right? And you're in a place like Canada where that's not commonplace. It's not commonplace. Now, I think that it requires a certain sense of like self-conviction, self-confidence to be able to wear it in a place like Canada where it's not normally worn, right? Where do you kind of get that from? Where do you get that self-confidence from?
It's very interesting because I never, like I was always wondered if this actually makes me look like I'm Muslim, because I think I got mistaken for being a Jew a couple of times. Because like I think the Jews wear something
they
similar.
They wear like the yarmulke, like the little one on the very top. Yeah,
but it does make me look a bit more religious than other people.
Yeah,
and actually, like the main reason I started to wear it was out of fear more than confidence. Because when I went to like online school and went to that little school in the Southwest.
Oh yeah.
And you guys probably also experienced it, but in high school you get a lot of peer pressure, and a lot of people do like certain things that you personally don't want to do, but you kind of have to fit in sometimes. Like, like sometimes people invite you to like parties or, smoking, like
Yeah.
vaping, etc. Like that. It was out of fear of that because I was kind of afraid that I would fall into that and like lose my path a little bit. So then I started wearing this because it helped me build more confidence in rejecting those like peer pressures, essentially.
Just letting you be yourself.
Just letting me be myself. And people also started to respect me because of that. Because before I had this, like sometimes I would reject their offer, but then they would question me like, why? Right?
Yeah.
Like they don't understand it. And it became a little bit irritating because then I have to explain it.
Yeah.
So then ever since I started wearing this, the explanation becomes a little bit more easier because like they kind of assume that I'm religious and then they like don't
push it.
They don't push it, essentially. They kind of just respect my opinion.
That's interesting. Because right now it's like, you know, if you don't wear it, no one would know what your religious beliefs are.
Yeah.
Right? So when you do wear it, it's like it's on the table right from the get-go.
Yeah.
The second a person sees you, you don't have to explain that, oh, I'm a Muslim or something like this. I believe in this, I believe in that. It's all just on the table.
Yeah.
Right? That's interesting.
And like I think what was I going to say? I think like one of the main one of the benefits is that it's also like really developed my confidence in like projecting my religious beliefs too. Because like I know like some people here like they don't really expect Asians to be Muslim.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first time like we had a prayer group in Tom Baines, remember, in middle school.
Yeah.
And I remember one person asked me if I was Chinese and he was like, "Oh, I didn't know. Why are you Muslim then?"
Yeah.
Like I remember someone asking me that question and I was like, wow, okay. So I guess a lot of people don't view Asians as Chinese, and because of that it becomes a bit more difficult for me to explain that I'm Muslim.
Even though Malaysia is like one of the biggest Muslim populations in the world.
Yeah, Indonesia is the biggest.
Indonesia, yeah.
We have the biggest Muslim population, but people don't really expect that. So then, it's a bit harder for me to explain. So, but then since I started wearing this, it becomes a bit easier. Like when I say it's because of my religious beliefs, they don't push it a bit more or stuff like that. Yeah.
So just basically wearing your heart on your sleeve, letting everyone throwing the cards on the table, being like, "This is who I am." People just seem to respect that, right?
Interesting.
I think it's interesting. It's like if you're throwing everything out there, then it's like, okay, I've got nothing to hide. This is who I am, and accept me or not. Yeah. It's up to you, right? You give
take
them,
it or leave it.
Yeah, exactly.
You give them the choice instead of them trying to finesse you and convince you to do otherwise, which I think is super interesting.
Like probably the other benefit is that the people that do stick around me are good people because they respect me and stuff like that. So then because of that, it definitely developed a really good friend group.
Do you think that you've faced any negatives from wearing it?
Yeah, like gets sometimes a bit weird, like scary, like people think. Like sometimes in downtown, I remember people asking me if I'm Muslim, like out of nowhere. Like, some people just asked me, and then there was a time that I don't know if he was following me or not, but we went to a train, and like the same guy that asked me that question went to the same like the train.
Oh, like
pod.
the same car?
Yeah, same car. And he was just like walking back and forth.
Oh, that's weird.
That was really weird.
Yeah.
So I moved to another train, but like stuff like that happens once in a while. But yeah, when I do go downtown, I do take precautions. Like one of my like philosophies of going to downtown to keep myself safe is like, if you see someone shady, look shadier than them. Yeah. So like I would put hoodies on, mask on. Like I would look even more intimidating than them.
That's funny.
Scare the shady guys away.
Yeah.
Beat them at their own game.
Exactly.
You put fake tattoos on, you're like face tattoos. That's funny. That's awesome.
So over the next year, what is one skill that you personally would like to develop? I know you've talked about all these other ones that you've been working on over the years, but what's something new?
So like currently I'm working as an undergraduate researcher and a TA this semester. And one of the things that I definitely want to develop is just being able to communicate effectively through scientific writing, because that's a challenge. I'm pretty sure a challenge for everyone. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with scientific writing, but there's a lot of jargon with paper writing and stuff like that. So that's like one skill I definitely want to develop. In terms of just in general, I think I would develop. It's a bit weird, but I kind of want to develop my parenting skill a little bit, because I know my brother is about to graduate next year, so then I definitely want to help him
Graduate high school?
Yeah, graduate high school.
Oh my goodness, bro. Wow.
Yeah, he's graduating high school next year, so this year and next year my goal is to like help him kind of figure out what he wants to do. He kind of have some ideas, but I haven't really helped him that much on it. So I want to give him a bit more opportunities, developing his like volunteering experiences and stuff like that. I think he talked about trying to get a job this summer. I was hoping to help him with that as well. I'm glad I don't have exams, so then I can help him. But those are some stuff that I want to develop on. Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you a bit of a scenario, right? We're gonna do a little bit of imagination right now. Let's say you're going on a hike, right? Now, when we go on hikes up the mountains, you need to bring a couple things with you, right? If you bring a couple things with you, it helps. If you bring good footwear, makes it easier to walk, a couple walking sticks, maybe some snacks. These are things that are going to help you get to the top of the mountain, right? Now, let's say that this mountain is your life, okay? And there are some things that you should bring with you, quote unquote, with you on your life journey that are going to help you get to your top, get to your peak summit, get to the top of your achievements, the top of your life passion, so on and so forth. What do you think are some of the things that we should bring with us on our hike up our own personal mountains?
What type of things? Like materialistic things?
Like skills, material.
It can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay, because if it was materialistic, I was just going to be like, take your phone. I think in terms of skills, one of the things that I definitely believe is really important is resourcefulness. Because when let's say if you're going up a hike, even like a normal hike, let's say if you're trapped in some place, and same with life, you have to be really resourceful with what you have and what because like you can't, like when you're stuck in a problem, you can't be stuck imagining what you should or what you would have if you prepared otherwise. You kind of just have to work with what you do have.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And it also is really important because when you're resourceful, you also start to value other people. So you start to realize that it's not just, you can't do anything on your own. Like one of the things I learned from my environmental class from my teacher is that connections are like vital for your success, essentially. Like if you don't have really good connections, it really becomes difficult regardless of how hard you work. It becomes really difficult for you to get opportunities. But if you have a lot of connections and you're resourceful with those connections, you have a higher chance of success, essentially, is what I think. That's
awesome.
One trait. And then another trait is humility. Like never forget where you started. Because like I know when we start to do all these when we start to like have all these like achievements of all of our achievements, sometimes we get a little bit arrogant, and I'm guilty of that too sometimes. I think a counselor had to put me down once. I got scolded for it once by a friend because I was being too arrogant leading this group. But those are experiences that I had to experience personally to kind of bring myself down, and remember that I also struggled a lot, and I'm privileged by like all the opportunities that I get, because I really I know like there's this saying like if you work hard enough you can do anything you want, but I'm kind of against that saying, because I can probably think of millions of other people that work way harder than me but don't have the same opportunities. I can think of all the people in developing countries, like people in, let's say, I don't know, Syria or Palestine, who are trapped in their countries. They don't have the same opportunities as me, but they could be working way harder than me, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you really you can't take things for granted, because like you're essentially just lucky to be here, essentially. So that's another trait. And then I think I don't know what else would I bring with me. Humility, resourcefulness. I don't know. What would you guys bring?
Throwing it back.
Good question, boss. Good question.
It's a difficult question.
We've asked these questions a couple times, and I still don't think I have an answer to it.
I think something that you mentioned that I would definitely bring is communication.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like communication and connection. Like if you need to be able to connect well and communicate well your ideas to other people, or else you're stuck in your own head.
Yeah,
You're stuck.
that's true.
You could have the best ideas in the world, but if you can't convey it to other people and get people to believe in it just like you, then you won't be able to do much with it. It stays within your own body, right? So I think that's something that I would bring.
Yeah, I think it's like not worrying about what others are doing. I don't know what's the term. There's like a word. I don't know if there's like a single term, but like not being concerned about what other people are doing and focus on yourself.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Like if you're so busy watching other people do their things, maybe Imad said that or Danny said that on his podcast. Maybe I'm just copying them. But if you're focusing on other people, you're not climbing that mountain.
Yeah, I know.
You're just watching them climb.
You're just standing there watching other people do what you could be doing yourself.
Yeah.
So if you put your head down and do your thing to the best of your ability, and be like, if other people get to the top of their mountain, that's awesome. But I'm trying to do that myself.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the humility portion.
Yeah.
Like, and I think from what you guys based, I think the other thing that I would bring is like bravery, a sense of bravery. And I know that a lot of people say they don't have bravery, but I think people have a misconception of what bravery is. Like bravery is not like bravery is not something like confidence or anything like I view bravery as something like I feel very uncomfortable of doing this, but I will do it anyways. That's kind of my definition of bravery, is like, even though you know that like it's gonna be a challenging experience, like you could be put in situations where like you have no idea where you're gonna be, or like you don't know where you'll end up. I think if you have a sense of bravery and you just like have like faith, or bravery or faith, either or, like I would take either of those. Like if you have faith in something, like if it's faith in yourself, faith in God, regardless, if you have faith or bravery, I think that would like set you for life, essentially.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think those are some great skills that you need to have.
Yeah,
like if you don't have the three that you mentioned, it's like it'll be a struggle to get up that mountain. That's for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on to our interview today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of like really amazing stories, experiences that I think are very unique to you, and there are a lot of lessons that we can take away from those into our own personal lives. So yeah, thank you for those.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for inviting me. This is super
Absolutely.
fun.
Yeah.
Invite me again.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode of Blurred Summits. If you would like to catch the full video podcast, you can watch it on YouTube. The full audio podcast is out on all platforms. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok for daily clips and content. And be sure to follow us on Twitch. We are now going live on Twitch with our guests every single week, so you guys can ask your own questions
every Sunday
as well.
Every
Sunday
9 a.m.
at 9 a.m. Mountain Time.